Calgon bath oil beads made to leave you feeling soft as an early morning dew. My box is near my tub. That's why I don't happen to have it here. My next guest is certainly one of the more vocal critics here in New York. Caustic is a word that's often applied to him. He writes theatrical criticism for New York Magazine and for The New Leader. He writes film criticism for the one and theater for the other. And he calls them as he sees them. He cannot be cornered out of his opinions. He's endeared himself recently to punsters by saying of a performance by Norman Wisdom, the English comedian, "If this is Norman Wisdom, I'll take Saxon Folly." Whoa! Would you welcome, please, anyway, John Simon. Yeah. Who'd you like? Well, Mr. Richard, Miss Moreno. Jonathan, good to see you. I always think that maybe all this handshaking is silly. We all meet backstage, except I didn't say hello to you backstage. So
there you are.
There you are. You've caught me.
Indians in that territory, so I had to wait till you got out here.
I see. Can I call you John? You've been on several times now, and last time you were here, it was with Mort Saul, and you were trying to figure out if there were any intellectual women, and we moved on from that.
Oh, I'm sorry I missed that.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds fantastic.
Well, we'll run it for you backstage.
Okay.
I'll introduce you to one after the show.
You know some?
What was the outcome? Yes or no?
Was it a draw? Do you remember?
It's not for the contestants to be umpires as well.
True. I shouldn't ask you that. We've been talking about a number of things. I did not know until this moment that you had reviewed Love Story, so I guess...
Well, it isn't out yet, but I thought as a fair warning to Mr. Segal, I might slip it to him before we go on, which I did.
How is
Well, it was a warning. It was fair.
How did it come out? How did you...
How did what come out? The review? Or
The review,
film?
yeah. Would it come down on the
Unfavorable.
plus or the negative side? It is a negative. Is it...
There you are. Vox,
I have a
Vox
very
Populi,
large family.
Vox Dei.
Yeah. Now, well, should we talk about that?
Could I answer right away
Sure.
without Mr. Simon going into his very reaction, Latinate and apt, Vox Populi, Vox Dei, to the... I'm grateful to you. Thank you, all my relatives out there, for what you said. I just want to say, please, because I have some awareness of what I did and didn't do in Love Story, both movie and film. It's not a great work of art at all. I think I'm in a position to judge works of art. I'm a judge of the National Book Award this year, you know. So I mean, I know, you know, I can be objective. It is not a great work of art. On the other hand, it has pleased an inordinately large number of people. Love Story has brought in a certain kind of pleasure. And as you say, maybe the critical dictum is Vox Populi, Vox Dei. The voice of the people is the voice of the heavens, if you will.
I didn't say it was the critical dictum. I merely commented on its existence.
Well, it is a critical dictum, and it's the one to which I adhere.
I would say it's an uncritical dictum.
No, I think it is, well, it's an uncritical critical dictum.
Okay. All right, if you like to twist things around, that's...
No, but I mean, the point is, I'll go by that. I'll accept, I read with interest, and I can't say I smiled a lot when I read the tear sheets of your review of Love Story, but on the other hand, my answer to you and to your objections to Love Story is the fact that in the first 3 days that Love Story, the movie, which you were reviewing, not the book, was shown, that is to say, it opened Christmas Day. In those 3 days, more people saw that movie than have ever seen a movie in 3 days in the United States of America. Now, it must be doing something right. Well, I mean...
Look, I mean, if somebody came out with a cheaper substitute for margarine, just as margarine was a cheaper substitute for butter, I'm sure that would be doing wonderful things in the grocery store.
Right, but it'll be interesting. No, it's interesting to know. This is fine. Now, everyone is entitled to his opinion, but evidently Love Story is margarine. Just to carry your metaphor further, if Love Story is margarine, what is the butter to which Love Story is margarine?
Oh, a lot of things. Any good novel, any good poem, any good short story is the butter to Love Story. For example, I mean, you know, I can name 1,000. I mean, for example, I was just thinking as I frankly did bone up. I had reviewed the film only skimming the book. Now I even read the book. And I was just thinking as I was coming, for example, to the death part, that an artist, let's say Dylan Thomas in a villanelle like Do Not Go Gentle. But I was thinking of a German poet, Theodor Storm, in one of his poems, to a dead woman, Einer Toten. Or I was thinking of the great Austrian novelist and playwright and short story writer Arthur Schnitzler in a novella called Sterben, to die. Take something like Sterben. That is what it is really like when two people who love each other and one of them has to die. Yours has about as much bearing on reality as this setting here has on a living room, I would say.
Okay. Okay, I can't argue that. I certainly don't want to be here to trumpet the virtues of love story. We have only, when you bring in reality, though, I think it's a very dangerous thing to do because it's your subjective reality,
Yes.
obviously, and Schnitzler made reality for you in Sterben, but Jenny's reality seems to be an international reality.
It's an international escape, yes.
Does it bother you, John, that the movie is that successful and that the book is that successful? Does this depress you in any way
well,
about the...
not yes and no. No, in the sense that I think anybody has the right to make a buck, whether it's honest or dishonest. If he can get away with it, more power to him. I'm
Wait,
not
was
against
I
it.
honest or dishonest, please?
I think you're a mixture of both. I think you'd be very hard put to bisect yourself, but I think there's a little bit
I'd
of
be
each.
uncomfortable if I bisected myself,
Yes.
I assure you.
But the thing that does bother me is, I was just saying this to somebody out there, that unfortunately Mr. Segal does not have the excuse that someone like Jackie Suzanne has, who is a genuinely person and who writes, who writes her piece of trash and really cannot be expected to know the difference between trash and I'm not even talking about high art. I'm not expecting Mr. Segal to write Proust or Joyce or Thomas Mann. I'm just talking about any kind of art, modest art, let's say Philip Roth art, or Saul Bellow art, or what have you. But you see, he being a professor and having a good education and having read things and even teaching those things must know what the difference is, or ought to know what the difference is.
Aha! Allow me to say this. And this is with all the honesty I can muster. Sir, I respect your greater critical acumen. You know what great art is, but have you produced it? No, wait, this is not to put you down. You will readily admit that you have not written a great novel or great art, right? Okay, now, should you be enjoined from trying? All I did was try.
Well, nobody is enjoying
So
it.
therefore, what did I do dishonestly? I tried. And I tell you, qua professor, that I did not write anything worthy of any sort of reward, but it was honestly done, and I am ready to accept the acceptance and the love given to it by the great mass of people, not only here, but even in Europe.
You have a choice. You have a choice, Mr. Segal. You can elect to be a knave or you can elect to be a fool. You have chosen the latter, deluded by your own lack of talent. Very well, go ahead.
No, wait
Wait
a
a minute,
minute.
we have a... Did you get anything for Christmas, John? Sorry. We must take a pause. If you don't quite feel it with this message is for you. We'll be right back. Hi.
Is this water?
We closed on my asking if you had gotten any Christmas presents, but maybe there's a serious side to that question because there are so many people who can't stand you, as you know, from the fact that you have written what they think is unfair criticism of them personally in
Well,
reviews.
I could say in
does this? I guess I always ask you this, don't I?
I can say in my defense that at least I'm not deluded about what I'm doing. I know that being a critic and calling it truly as you see it is not going to make you friends, and therefore I don't expect any friends.
Excuse me,
I have a few of them
question.
anyway.
Oh, sorry.
Yes,
Yes.
of course.
I have a question I've been wanting to ask somebody like you or Martin Gottfried. I'm speaking of the critics who are known for being extremely critical. I'm not sure if I can phrase it properly, but what I'm trying to get at is this. Given the kind of standards that we have in much of American theater, I'm not speaking of all of it, but much of it, do you think there is a place for your kind of criticism? Now, by this, you know what I mean by
Yeah, I
the
know.
standards.
Well, I think
you know,
there
are
are
Broadway standards, and they are, for the most part, unfortunate.
Another way of saying
even
it is that
off-Broadway.
if everything were up to your standard, Broadway would only have 2 or 3 things running. Is
They
one
wouldn't
way
have
that one
anything,
form the criticism
probably.
takes. Is that
There
fair at all?
are two possible answers to this. The more high-minded answer would be that, let's not say specifically me, but you mentioned Martin Gottfried and there are others. If criticism were a truly serious and a truly uncompromising and ungames-playing enterprise, it would probably drive a lot of things out of business. But there is the possibility that something would spring up instead of that driven-out place that would be better. Now, of course, that's only a hypothesis. The other answer, the less sanguine, the less noble answer, is that there aren't that many serious critics around. And luckily for the theater and for everyday fiction and other forms of art or pseudo-art or flagrant non-art, there is everything. You know, there's Stanley Kaufman, there is Walter Kerr, there's Richard Watts. I mean, you know, the critics come on all levels, and
Yes.
readers find their level, and plays find their levels, and so there's room for everything. There are many mansions in the house of criticism.
But then in that case,
I mean, many rooms
what
in the mansion
function
of
do you
criticism.
think you and people like yourself who are demanding theater goers, and I really mean this in the best sense, I mean, we really do need a little of that, a lot of it really. What function do you think you serve now in the present theater that we have?
Well, you see, nothing, I think, is so bad, but that it can improve itself a little bit. I don't expect the person who writes, let's say, Promises, to read a review by Martin Gottfried or me or Stanley Kaufman or Pauline Kael or whatever, and write Remembrance of Things Past the next day. Obviously not. But I think even on the bottom of the scale, I'm not saying that Promises is necessarily at the bottom, there's always room for a little bit of improvement, and by aiming higher, perhaps pathetically higher even, some of the lowest people can improve themselves a little bit. I think that's
Which is really the essence of criticism, isn't it?
That's the hope, yes.
Yeah.
Has this been costly to you in any way, John, in that, has anyone said if you would be a little more positive, we could hire you?
Give you a Christmas present.
Well, you see, nobody ever says this. They don't spell it out, but I imagine it is in the back of some of these minds and non-minds that, yes, that
If you,
it's costly in the sense that I tend to write for magazines that don't pay very much, and I tend not to be in the places, you know, where one makes millions, but that's all right.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
About the history of literature, and this is, you know, not anyone's PhD orals open again, but I've wondered if we can look back at the whole history of literature and see any instance in which criticism really functioned constructively to improve art. I wonder.
Well, you know, that's one of those questions to which nobody has the answer. We all have hypotheses, and that's about as far
But
as
on the
it
contrary,
goes.
we've got a historical perspective. We can look back and see ages of art and see.
No, because one cannot say whether so-and-so's second novel was better than his first, or such and such's third play was better than his second and first because he read Aristotle, or because he read whoever it may be, Thomas Reimer or whatever.
didn't you say
There
some...
are no statistics available on this matter.
Well, I would like to suggest that throughout the history of literature, that the critics never were with the artists. Shakespeare was not the preeminent man really of his time. He was more put down than not. Euripides, always put down. Oedipus Rex, I hope that passes muster.
Well,
Oedipus Rex was put down in 423 BC.
While we're on the subject of Euripides was most put down by the enlightened public of Athens.
Negative.
So
Negative.
before you caught...
Not so.
Oh, I see you
not so.
speak like our characters, too.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I teach Euripides, and
Does
Euripides
negative
was,
mean no, by the way?
Yes, negative means no. I hope, if anyone else here didn't know what negative meant, it means no.
Well, anyway,
It's the opposite of
Euripides
positive.
was, you know, his plays fell through, as they say, in Athens. That was
That's
the
not
public's
true.
doing.
That's not
Why
true.
did he go into exile?
Sir, that is not true. Euripides didn't win the first prizes. Euripides was extremely successful with the people. That's my whole point. They loved him, and the people afterwards loved him. The scholars, the scribes, preserved more of Euripides than of Sophocles and of Aeschylus
Meets the-
because they loved Euripides. And they didn't care what the critics, who were the judges there at the drama festivals every spring, they said, Euripides, down.
Right on.
But the people said, right on Euripides.
No,
and
I'm
that's
sorry.
really true. I'm sorry.
You'll have to-
Wait, let me say something. Let me talk to you. Y'all been talking all night. Let me talk. Let me talk to you. Why?
Can you
I
clear-
wished I was a...
Can you clear this up in 30 seconds? Then
I can clear it up in a second.
Okay.
I don't think that people should care. If I was in a play, I wouldn't care what you write. It wouldn't make no difference because I wouldn't think that you would know anyway. I think if God give a person a gift, that he has a gift, I don't think that a man could tell how the beans supposed to be in the pot when they don't even eat beans. You understand that? And so if I was on Broadway and a book writer, now I'm writing a book called He Got What He Wanted, but He Lost What He Had. I don't care what they say. And you see how I dress? I don't care what they feel. I do what I feel. I don't care what the critics say. If they say he's awful, it don't matter because most of them that write are terrible. They're old and outdated. That's the truth. And they don't know what's going on, never been in, can't get out. Shut up!
Well,
Answer that later or no?
that sort of wipes you out, doesn't it? You may answer that in a moment. We'll be back after this message from our local station.